And now let's go back to our story on the security conference in Munich. And to give us an understanding of what the issues are being discussed there, to give us an opinion on it and help us to understand it better, we have with us Ambassador Anil Kumar Trigunayat, who's a former senior diplomat. Thank you very much, Ambassador Trigunayat. Do you see the world in a lose-lose or a loss-loss dynamic, which is what the Munich security report seems to suggest?
Well, normally the international community and the diplomacy should be working on win-win solutions. But what we are witnessing now with the three major black swan events is that we have come into a very typical dynamic, and that is a lose-lose dynamic. Everybody is a loser, whether it is the Russia-Ukraine war, whether it was in the pandemic, or now in the Israel-Hamas war. So the whole world is losing in that sense. We are seeing the weaponization of financial instruments. We are seeing the weaponization of food, fertilizer, and fuel. We are seeing the health pandemics debilitating the global economies. We are seeing the intrinsic competition among the states and very often just thinking of themselves at the expense of others. So this is what basically this Munich report, Security Report 2024, that outlined the situation. But of course, at this conference, you have heard Zelensky, and he's been continuing to ask for more money to defeat Russia. Russia is not stopping unmasking new weapon systems. We are seeing Iran today has done another anti-ballistic missile test. So the situation is very, very volatile. Indeed. There is a real fear of the war conflagrating in Middle East at the moment. And it might even go, if you see the other war, of Russia-Ukraine war, which is running into its second year, is could go way beyond for the global conflagration. Okay. So I think at this stage, there are real concerns. And unfortunately, what I see is that there is no effort to resolve the problems. There are only an attempt to somehow try to contain the conflagration, which is very difficult to do so if you don't address the real situations or the real issues, which are essentially the cause of these problems.
So to deal with some of those issues, what's happening is that they're wanting to strengthen, in fact, the EU's desire to strengthen the defense industry. Now, does this ultimately, in fact, make the world, less safe or safer? How would you view it?
Well, actually, it's ironical. But the war is an industry by itself. And as you know, whenever there is a war, the military-industrial complex of certain countries tends to prosper, while everybody else has a problem. So today, we have seen, as you have heard, perhaps Olaf Scholz, he was talking about that Europe and America has come together. So the transatlantic alliance in the wake of the Russia-Ukraine war has gelled together. But at the moment, if there is a fear that if Trump comes to power, and his views on the NATO and its security architecture are very different. So he will make them pay for every bit of the security that is being ensured for them. So there are a lot of uncertainties exactly how it will play out. But definitely, we are seeing a greater degree of armaments, more hypersonic missiles, there are more weaponization of the space, more newer kind of weapon systems that can destroy the world even much more faster than otherwise. So I think that this is a very disconcerting situation. And Munich Security Conference, as you know, by its very name, talks more about the key security issues. Right. I think the peace and conflict issues are also need to be equally addressed within the same vein.
And how do you view China's Foreign Minister Wang Yi saying that whoever tries to decouple from China or in the name of de-risking or something like that would be making a historical mistake? Is this an old story that we are, hearing once again?
Well, China has greatly benefited from perhaps the misconceptions of the West in a long time. They thought that they could change China's political philosophy and its international behavior by engaging with them in the same manner as like the other Western countries, or the same kind of a liberal political order. But China has begun to challenge that liberal order. It says that it can frame its own systems. It can rules, regulations which he thinks is the best, and the ones that have been created by the West in the aftermath of the Second World War are frankly no longer valid. Or to a great extent, I must say that the liberal trading order and liberal world order has also been undermined by these very Western countries who used to champion them. So that is also true. So there is a lot of hypocrisy in the global discourse today, and that is why countries like China tend to champion the cause of globalization for that matter, while we are seeing deglobalization, protectionism elsewhere. So that's what they clearly reflective in Wang Yi is this thing. Wang Yi has benefited from this globalization dimension. And now that we are looking at the Western countries getting more into deglobalization and more into these pockets of influence, and once again, the Cold War 2.0 kind of a mindset, and
Yes.
thinking that China is the major challenge for that. Obviously, the Wang Yi's statement is very clearly articulating that. But what we have seen is that
Okay.
in recent past, the United States, which was begun with the decoupling, without realizing the kind of integration that had already happened between the global economies in China, I
Right.
think has moved from decoupling to de-risking. And now even de-risking is, in my view, not that very sharp,
All
at
right.
least in the near term,
So,
although that is an objective of the United States
so
and the
let's bring
West.
India into the picture then, Ambassador Trigunayat. Do you see India emerging as a key player in the security environment beyond the Indo-Pacific theater?
Well, I think that India is basically tries to have a defense posture, has the defense capabilities. Given its own economic, it has never had an offensive intent or tried to have an offensive capability. But since the region in our own region is the most volatile region, be it West Asia, be it the Indo-Pacific, be it the Indo-Ocean, I think that is what we need to be very, very careful about. And apart from that, there are non-traditional security threats for India, like terrorism. We are having the climate change problem. So all those also issues require India to take a greater lead. I mean, I do not see India. India is, of course, one of the major countries that provides relief supplies and is a first responder from Maldives to Turkey. So I think that that is also a dimension of the security which India provides. India has been part of the vaccine Metri, for example, providing health security across the world. It has been a part of food security chain also. So it has been trying to work on those dimensions.
Yes.
But in the hardcore security, I think apart from the peacekeeping operations in which we are the leaders, I don't see India playing a very major role in the crisis and conflict situation. Our objective essentially is to secure India in the first place, and that's what I think is going forward is going to be our major motto, whether it is through multi-alignments or whether it is through bilateral engagements with different countries or by ourselves.
Right, we leave it there. Thank you very much, Ambassador Anil Trigunayat,
Thank you.
former senior diplomat. Thank you for your
Thank you.
inputs and understanding.
Thank you.
Now, the Indian Air Force conducted the exercise Vayu Shakti 24 near Jaisalmer in the Indian state of Rajasthan. So this exercise, it saw the participation of the Tejas, the Prachand, the Dhruv, as well as the Rafale, the Mirage 2000, the Sukhoi 30 MKI, the Jaguar, among others. Let's take a look at this report.
44